This video is my build of the F-4 Phantom II of VF-92 Silver Kings and VF-96 Fighting Falcons in both 1:72 and 1:720. As part of a larger project I'm doing of the Revel 1:720 USS Enterprise from 1968 and all the Carrier Air Wing 9 aircraft that flew off of her in 1:72, of which these F-4Bs are the second. I always use the most definitive references I can find. Here's my list. The History of U.S. Naval Air Power has a 2-page color illustration of an F-4B from a different squadron. I also reference the Enterprise's cruise book from 1968, available online. The most definitive and useful reference is GRS Video's DVD, USS Enterprise Tonkin Gulf, which has over an hour of footage taken by actual crew members of flight deck operations. Here's an example. I built 2 Fujimi kits K4-72104 for the VF-92 and G11-26011 for the VF-96. I basically built them out of the box as per instructions with a little scratch building for the tail of the K4 kit. And I also added bomb racks and bombs from my spares box. I also used aftermarket decals specific to these 2 planes, and even made some custom decals, which you'll see later. I built the 2 kits simultaneously so as to ensure I maintained consistency between the 2, because but for the squadron-specific markings, the 2 planes should be identical. I started with the cockpits. I built, painted, and decaled them, then trimmed down and test fit the crew figures into the cockpits. I built up the crew's helmets and simulated goggles with layers of thick gel superglue. Once dry, I painted them as per my GRS references, with white helmets, field green flight suits, dark ghost gray masks and hoses, then dry brushed the buckles silver. Next, I built the fuselages, sure to put fishing weights in the noses to ensure they'll sit on their forward 3-point landing gear. Next, I built the wings and subsequently installed the cockpits, then attached the wings to the fuselage. My references showed both planes should have the tail fin cap RHAW antenna housings. The K4 VF-92 kit did not. Therefore, I scratch built them with bits from my spares box and some styrene rod to match the G11 kit as best I could. Next, I removed all of the remaining parts from their sprues, cleaned them up, and set them aside. Next, I addressed the bomb rack sub-assembly. To more accurately match my references, I went to my spares box for better bomb racks and additional bombs. I trimmed off the pylons attached to those racks and cleaned them up. Then I attached the kit-provided pylons to the spare bomb racks. The parts were now ready for their first paint scheme color, Insignia White FS17875, which I applied by airbrush. And while that dried, I dipped the cockpit canopies in future floor wax, which helps hide minor scratches. After I attached the canopies, I masked them and all the surfaces that are to remain white, i.e. the noses, control surfaces, and the entire bottoms of the planes. I then masked the tail sections, rear wings, and jet exhausts, and airbrushed them clad airframe aluminum. To create the walkways on the wings and engine shoulders, I first masked off and airbrushed those areas with dark gold gray FS36231. Then I created masking templates from copies of walkway decals and tape, repeatedly test fitting and trimming them. Once I had the templates right, I transferred them to masking tape and applied the tape masks to the wings and engine shoulders. With the walkways, canopies, white, and aluminum surfaces masked, I airbrushed all the remaining surfaces flat gold gray FS36440. Then I removed all but the canopy and nose masks and masked around the anti-glare space between the nose and forward canopy and airbrushed it flat black FS37038. I masked off the lower tail section behind the exhaust, including the tail hooks, and airbrushed them as well as oversprayed the jet exhaust parts with burnt iron Model Master B1424. Then I lightly sanded the finned portions of the exhaust to reveal the alclad airframe aluminum below to achieve a worn and weathered look. With the basic paint scheme of the planes complete, I addressed two other details. I hand-painted the tips of all the tail antenna flat black, and I masked and airbrushed the upper centers of the rear wings, alclad burnt iron ALC 121. Then I did a final test fit of the rear wings and exhausts. I also hand-painted the tires on all the wheels with the flat black. Next, I addressed the sidewinder rockets. I hand-painted the rocket tips Testors Gloss Black. For the black and yellow stripes on the rockets, I used microscale black and yellow stripe decal, which yields a much cleaner and more consistent line than attempting to hand-paint them all. Next, I addressed the bombs. I airbrushed them olive drab FS 34087. Then I hand-painted the bomb tips with an insignia yellow FS 33538. I created the triggers on the bomb tips out of fine styrene rod, superglued to the tips, then hand-painted them Model Master stainless steel. An airbrushed coat of future floor wax completed the build and painting of the planes and subassemblies. Now I turn to the decals. For the VF-92 plane, I mainly used the Fox 1 72-001 set Phantom MiG killers. Note, it's for the 1972 F-4J on the USS Constellation. More about this later. I supplemented this set with decals from Superscale 72-111, Superscale 72-199, and Microscale 72-420, as well as decals I made on my computer and printer copier, then printed on micromark decal paper. For the VF-96 plane, I mainly used Furball Aero Design Set 72001, F-4Bs of the Vietnam conflict. I also used Scalemaster sets SM-15A and 15B U.S. Navy Marines lettering, and microscale decal stripe sets in various sizes and colors. And finally, I used decals from the Fujimi plane kits as well as from my spares box. I started with the VF-92 plane and the Fox 1 set. References showed the need for custom-made decals including the crew names and the Silver King chest piece on the intake blades. I created the crew names on my computer word processing app. For the chest piece, I scanned the Fox 1 decal, separated out the chest piece, then printed the names and images on micromark decal paper and overcoated them with liquid decal film. Once dry and cut out, they went on the plane just like any other decal. On the Fox 1 tail decal, which again is from the 72 Connie F4J, the chest piece doesn't touch either the N or the G beside it. On my 68 F4B, the N and G overlap the chest piece. I cut each out separately and overlapped them appropriately on the plane. I also made the tail code numbers and used the USS Enterprise ship name from the Scalemaster SM-15B U.S. Navy lettering set. And I cut the correct BU number from spares and laid each number individually. References showed a spade symbol on both front landing gear doors on the VF-92 plane. Luckily, I had a spare A6A intruder decal with spades on it. I scanned and reduced them on my computer, then printed them on decal paper as well. For the VF-96 plane, the Furball Aero Design set is specifically for this plane, and thus decaling it was fairly straightforward. Again, except for the squadron-specific markings, the two planes need to be identical. This means all the various stencil markings like no steps, warnings, and cautions need to be exactly the same on both planes. I scoured my decal sets and spares box and pulled together 4 identical sets for the wings and 2 identical sets for the rest of the planes and subassemblies. After completing the decals on the 2 planes, I set them aside and looked at them and almost had a heart attack. The Navy decal on the rear fuselage of the 92 plane were smaller and thinner than on the 96 plane because they came from that Fox 1 set for the 72 F4J. Luckily, the Scalemaster SM-15B had navies virtually identical to those on the 96 plane, so I carefully worked the incorrect decals off with Microsol red decal setting solution and was able to remove them. I recoated the areas with Future and laid down the correct decals. Whew, disaster averted. I used microscale red stripe decal on the edges of the landing gear doors. Next, I prepared a weathering wash of black chalk shavings, water, and a few drops of dishwashing liquid and applied it to the various subassemblies and parts. Then I finished up the bomb and bomb rack subassemblies, as well as the rocket and rocket rail subassemblies, and attached all the parts and subassemblies to the planes. I finished the planes by applying the wash to the entire plane, making sure it ran into all the panel lines and pooled in the nooks and crannies to provide depth and shadows. I also simulated wind-swept streaks of grime and weathering on all the control surfaces. Finally, I masked the canopies with parafilm and gave both planes a coat of Tester's Dull Coat to seal the wash and provide the proper sheen. Here are the completed planes. With the 1-72 planes as my reference, I moved on to the 1-720s. I found the Revell Enterprise kit provided F4s were both too few in number and pretty inaccurate, so I went with two of the Trumpeter 1-700 F4J kits, 03423. Upon closer inspection, I found the planes had inaccurate raised exhausts, so I highlighted these areas with a silver Sharpie, then corrected all the planes by carving off the offending protrusions and scraping the rear fuselages smooth with my number 11 blade. I removed the planes from their sprues, attached them to a cardboard base with sticky tack, and airbrushed them with insignia white FS 178-75. Next, I masked the upper and rear control surfaces of each plane. Then I embedded each masked plane in sticky tack, ensuring the upper surface was exposed from the horizontal center line up. I then placed each masked plane on cardboard and airbrushed the upper surfaces flat gold gray FS 36440. With the basic paint scheme complete, I used Tester's Sky Blue for the canopies and overcoated them with alclad chrome to achieve a glass effect. I painted the inner rear wings silver, the wingtips of the 92 planes insignia yellow, and the 96 wingtips gloss black. Next came the decals from the Starfighter set 753 for the 1968 Enterprise Carrier Air Wing 9, specifically for these planes and their fellow squadrons. They must be cut individually from the sheet, but slide very nicely with just a few drops of water and nestle right down with microscale setting solution. To apply these decals to the tiny planes, I anchored each plane in a ball of sticky tack and applied the appropriate decals to the upper surface. Then I moved the plane to a bottle cap anchored with another ball, wherein the plane is held by yet another ball so I could apply the appropriate decals to each side. I repeated this process for every plane. With my razor saw, I cut off the wings at the appropriate place on 6 of the planes, at least for now, so I could pose them later with the wings folded. I used the Big Blue Boy number 741 photo etch set for the landing gear and their doors, the bomb racks, and the rocket rails. I also used the kit-provided fuel tanks. I attached the photo etch parts and fuel tanks with thick gel superglue on each plane. Then I hand-painted all of these details insignia white and followed up with the tires in flat black. Finally, I attached the wings I cut earlier in their folded up positions on those 6 planes. Here are the completed F-4B Phantom II, VF-92 Silver Kings, and VF-96 Fighting Falcons of Carrier Air Wing 9 for my 1968 USS Enterprise project.